Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster on the Nerd Party, the podcast that, because we don't get to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp until the end of August because of the World Cup, is going to go head to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for the whole thing to blow over. Welcome to episode 122. Yes, 122. You heard that correct. Before the Edinburgh International Film Festival, we were at 102, and we've managed to jump up to 122 in that time. Hopefully you've been keeping a track of all our coverage of the Edinburgh International Film Festival. And to talk about that with me today is your regular host, Lee. How are you, Lee?
Yeah, I don't know about you. I think you've had a bit more of a bit of time off than me. The film festival ended for me yesterday. Bit tired, back to the normal day job today, but I'm kind of sad and happy it's over now, and I'm looking forward to kind of looking back on the second week with you.
Yeah, that's right. I went back to work today as well, but I did have a few days off. My festival ended on Wednesday, so we've got a few things to catch up on, although we've been keeping in contact via social media and all that. So I know what you've been up to all that time, and hopefully our listeners have been keeping a track of it as well. So I think the best thing to do is just kick off now. We recorded a podcast on the Sunday after the first sort of 5 days of the festival, so I think we could probably just pick up where we left off and go through what we've seen, who we've talked to, and just round it off with our sort of highlights of the festival. So do you want to kick us off with what you started the week with?
Well, I had a really good start to the week. I saw Dead in a Week or Your Money Back, which we had an interview with the writer-director and star of that movie this week. And this was a one that I'd heard the name, Dead in a Week or Your Money Back, and I heard that and I thought, you know what, that probably sounds like an adaptation of a kind of comic book or a graphic novel. I'm sure I've seen that in a Forbidden Planet. But in reality, it was sort of almost a British version almost of a John Wick 2. Or John Wick in general, where we have this assassin played by Tom Wilkinson, who's part of a guild. He's just got to get one more number for the week, for the year. And what he does is he now kind of patrols sort of suicide spots and encourages people that are struggling to kill themselves that, hey, I can do the job for you for a small fee. And what kind of ensues is a really fantastic British comedy that I was saying it to the guy himself. I was like, you know what these press screenings are like. It was the first screening of the day. These people are either hungover, tired, or in the middle of a long film festival. And the reaction to this was really good. Lots of humour, lots of laughter. And I think this is a movie that, if it gets a distribution deal here in the UK, it could be a firm favourite of a lot of people that are perhaps in their 20s. And I think that everyone that's seen it at the festival seems to have really enjoyed it. It put a smile on my face. Christopher Eccleston is hysterical in this movie. He's probably playing, the version of Christopher Eccleston we've all heard, that, the badass guy, takes no nonsense. But he adds that kind of character and adds in a bit of a comedy charm. I would highly recommend Dead in a Week or Your Money Back. It's something that will put a big laugh in your face, and I will be stunned if an original movie like this doesn't get a distribution deal, and it'll be a disgrace if it doesn't.
Yeah, no, I saw this one with you at the same time, and I really liked it. I thought there was strong performances all around. The lead actor, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name, but he played the sort of French sort of guy in Dunkirk. The guy who was silent and then turned out to be French, and he was just wanting to escape the beach as well. I thought he was great in the lead role. Christopher Eccleston again, very funny. Although there is this thing where any sort of crime film that's set in Britain seems to have, ever since Sexy Beast, they all seem to want to do Ben Kingsley in Sexy Beast. So you had it with Ralph Fiennes in Bruges, and Christopher Eccleston definitely had a vibe of him about this. Definitely seemed like this was his Sexy Beast. I did have some concerns while watching it that I don't know how it will play with a mainstream audience because of the subject matter of sort of suicide and mental health. It'd be interesting to see how it does. and how people react to it. I'm sure there will be some people who really like it. I mean, it is very sort of sensitively handled, but there will probably be a backlash to it of people who haven't seen it and are just going based on the description. But I thought it was well handled, surprisingly funny and very darkly funny for the subject matter. But I thought, I would highly recommended that one.
Well, because we always ask the tough questions here on Filibuster, I posed that question to the writer-director and also to the star of their initial reaction when viewing the script, and would perhaps people look at this and be something that think, could it be a bit insensitive? Could it be, a bit incorrect? And what he said really stuck with me when he was like, so many movies are about finding a reason to live, getting to that stage. We're just taking it from a point of view of someone that has lost all hope, who just wants to end it all, but finds that reason to kind of love and live again. And I was sitting there thinking, going, yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, they may have taken a different way, but I think if people are willing to give it a chance, then I think it definitely delivers on that. And I think it's very sensitive to that concept. And I think it could be something that could get people talking, that when we see movies about people wanting to commit suicide, often it's people that are a bit older, whereas this is someone that's young, can be perhaps relatable to younger people. So I think there's definitely an opportunity there. I even posed, would it be a movie that would work well shown in schools and could get people having a conversation? Maybe not, but we'll see. Yeah,
no, absolutely. So what was your next on your viewing schedule for the Monday?
Yeah, I went to see, and this was one of my highlights of the festival, was Obey. Obey is a British British drama that's set just on the eve of the London riots, and a young black working class man has just come back from care. He's back living with his alcoholic mother, her abusive boyfriend, and he meets Twiggy, played by Sophie Kennedy-Clark, a fellow Aberdonian as much like ourselves, and she shows him a slightly different life, but things in these circumstances tend to fall apart, and it sets him on a collision course with sort of a horrific moment within the London riots that unfolds. The less I say about this, the better, but it is definitely one of the best movies I've seen of the festival, and I think it's going to be a brilliant British movie that I hope it gets a crowd that will come along and see this. But I think the performances in here from all the actors are so strong. Marcus Rutherford, I think that's his last name, he is incredible in this role, and I think he's going to be an actor we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the future.
No, absolutely. I think this one is still on the online videotheque, so it's one I'm going to plan to catch up on in the downtime following the festival, and hopefully we'll see it in UK cinemas soon.
Absolutely.
While you were at that one, I went to see Solis, which is I described it as Gravity meets A Matter of Life and Death. It's a science fiction thriller set aboard an escape capsule, and this escape capsule is slowly headed directly towards the sun. Engineer Troy Holloway wakes up having escaped a planetary disaster on the sort of meteor that he was working on, and his only point of contact is the voice of Commander Roberts, played by Alice Lowe, who is on a ship that is inbound to rescue him. It's sort of as I say, sort of gravity, and the fact that nothing goes smoothly in his attempts to stay alive and stay sort of out the sun's reach, and it's very similar to The Martian, and that he has to overcome obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. This is a debut by a writer-director called Carl Strethy, and it's a very sort of interesting sort of calling card. It's clearly a very low-budget film. They've used, it's one actor the entire time. You've got one other voice in it, and that's it. It's a very small, enclosed set, but they use lighting very well. The effects, when you do see outside the pod, are very good, and it's just it's like a 90-minute, set in real time sort of sci-fi thriller, but I think it's a good sort of late night sort of film, and I don't think it'll get a huge release just due to the slow budget, but I think it's the director is definitely one to look out for in the future, I think, as well.
Yeah, I also saw this, but it was a bit later in the week, and I went into it with quite high expectations because it's the type of sci-fi movie that I look forward to, and I came away with it enjoying it. I thought the central performance was pretty strong, but I think it went on perhaps just a bit too long, and I just sort of you could almost it was just I was struggling to kind of go along with it. I was just sort of like, oh, can I just get on with it a little bit? Maybe I was kind of really fatigued by that stage of the festival because it was as good as my last day that I watched this one. And the performance was strong, but I was just sort of needing more stimulation from it. I was maybe needing, different elements happening, maybe different characters, which that's not the film. And I'm only beaten up because it wasn't the film I needed at that time to keep me going. But it's one of these movies that, as you say, it's a strong calling card, and I'd be interested to see what he does next.
Yeah, no, I think if the film if it had maybe another couple of passes at the script just to tighten up the dialogue and maybe make some of it slightly more original in dealing with the conversations between the two central characters, I think it could have been something pretty special. But I mean, if it's the kind of thing that, if it comes on Netflix, it's certainly worth a watch, I think.
Absolutely. That's almost a good segue.
Yeah. Because so what was the next film? Is it something that is it coming on to Netflix? Is that?
Yes, The Most Assassinated Woman in the World.
Of course, yes. We both saw that one. So what were your thoughts on that one?
I thought it was visually very interesting. I thought it had a strong central performance, but I just didn't click with it. I don't know what it was. I maybe need to revisit this one. But I went in and it was just... Yeah, I can't quite put my memory... I think it was the fact that I had such a strong day. I had Dead in a Week, Obey, and then one of my highlights of the festival after this. And then I just kind of was watching it, and it just seemed to... I don't know, it just didn't appeal to me. I thought, yeah, apart from the performances, it visually looks really good, the attention to detail, the sets, but just the story didn't interest me too much. It wasn't my cup of tea personally. Yeah,
no, I think we talked about it after the screening, and I was a lot higher on this film. I really liked it. This sort of film really sort of appeals to me. It's sort of got it's apparently based on a true story of an actress who was the biggest star of the Grand Guignol Theatre in Paris, who apparently died on stage, and although the film sort of hints at a different fate linked to her backstory, and this was the kind of sort of theatre that sort of did these horrific sort of visual, sort of very visceral performances of, the audience are getting splattered with blood up to the point where the first rows start to wear sort of bibs and stuff like this, sort of real sort of 3D sort of interactive theatre. But she's got a very sort of dark past, and there's a killer on the loose in Paris, possibly linked to her past, and it's got a sort of very sort of from hell vibe to it. I thought you could say Jacques the Ripper, perhaps. But I really like the style of it. I like the cinematography. I thought the lead actress was fantastic in it, and a woman called Anna Mugalis. She was just brilliant in it, and I think it's the kind of thing that it'll be on Netflix, and I don't think it probably won't get a huge cinema release, if at all, over here, but I think it's a kind of sort of late night again sort of thriller that it will appeal to a certain audience, those who maybe like the sort of giallo films of Dario Argento, that kind of sort of thing. But I really dug it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I think after that we both went into we finished our day with the same screening, and it's much like Dead in a Week or Your Money Back. Flammable Children's Swing Safari ended up as one of the best of the fest with the audiences. And what was your thoughts on Flammable Children, aka Swinging Safari?
For me, it was definitely the funniest film that I saw at the festival. And actually, I think we talked about it last time. When you're in a press screening, they can be a very sort of tough audience and are there to sort of just watch the film and then leave. They won't sometimes get involved in the film, but there was a lot of laughter at the screening, and justifiably so. It's an absolute romp. It's a riot. I think I described it as sort of if Richard Linklater directed an X-rated version of Neighbours. It's about these sort of three families in the 70s, and it's told from the perspective of sort of a teenage boy who's really into his filmmaking. So you see all these sort of 16mm, 8mm sort of video shots of the boys in the neighborhood trying to do sort of jackass style stunts and stuff like that. And the whole sort of friendship between the three families is basically put to the test when the adults decide to have a swinging night. And it's fair to say things sort of disintegrate quite rapidly into sort of a almost sort of tit for tat sort of practical joke pranking sort of thing. But ultimately it could be the children in the street that keep the families together. I thought the period detail was fantastic. I thought the performances were absolutely hilarious. I mean, the actors like Guy Pearce, Kylie Minogue as a agoraphobic alcoholic was just, so against type, but I thought they all played it superbly, completely without vanity, totally making fools of themselves. And for me, yeah, definite highlight of the festival. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think this was one we picked out in our build up to the festival as a movie that we would recommend. I remember, I think we were immediately when we were at that preview event, and they have that picture up on the screen of the thick handlebar mustache of the 70s fashion. There's just something about that just pulls you in straight away going, I'm really excited to see what that movie is. And I didn't know what to expect going in. I isolated myself from any of the conversation or whatever it could be about, because obviously it's been out in Australia for a little while. And I went in and I was just so amused from the get-go. I think it was just joke after joke after joke, and I for me it's like a mixture of Royal Tenenbaums with some Moonrise Kingdom with a little sprinkling of the ending of Magnolia in there for me. And I just thought it was one of the most enjoyable movies, and it's one of these ones you come out and it's what you kind of go into these press screenings for, to see these movies. And if they're great, you're going out there telling people you gotta go see this movie when it comes out. Best of the Fest, definitely get a ticket for that one. And it's amazing how many people seem to be recommending this movie. And I think it's going to be so exciting to see this play with like an audience. I really want to see this movie again, and it's very rare that I would see a comedy twice in a cinema. I really want to see this one again. It was so enjoyable. I had such a great time, and the attention to detail in the sets, the period, everything. There's just little moments like when they have like a gollywog doll, and it's just one of those ones you're like, oh my God. And I think it's perfectly encapsulated in when they go, it was the 70s before political correctness had ever been invented, and it really embraces that mantra. And I thought it was one of the most enjoyable times I've had in the cinema this year, let alone the festival.
Yeah, no, I think it's the kind of thing that it would be a perfect sort of sort of World Cup summer sleeper hit. I think, unfortunately, I haven't got details of a full UK release yet, but if it was released at the right time, I think it could be a sort of great word of mouth hit, and hopefully it does get a UK release, because I mean it's from the director of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, so I mean there's definitely enough star power and director power to merit a release over in the UK, and hopefully it does get that. So
definitely. So what did you go for?
After that, I went back up to Aberdeen for a couple of days. So you were left to your own devices to sit in the cinema screens and also catch up with a few more interviews and stuff like that. So what did you get up to while I was away?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so I started my day with Life After the Flash. It's a documentary that follows Sam Jones, best known as Flash Gordon to the world, and what life was like after Flash. And it's a somewhat frustrating movie. It's a movie of two halves in a way. The first half almost feels like it's a making of Flash, what happened at the time. They get a lot of the big names back, pretty much Timothy Dalton excluded, to talk about their memories of the Flash Gordon experience and what they remembered of Sam Jones. And obviously in the movie he had a falling out with the producer, and famously he was dubbed over in the final edit. And his post-career was up and down, and the interesting part of the movie for me was, as someone that has really no kind of attachment to Flash Gordon, I maybe just watched it once, was you see him going on the convention circuit and what he's like as a human being, his faith, his family to him, and how he's overcame some of those tough times that his career presented, and how he now works as security as well. So as he travels the world, he appears in movies here and there. He also was part of a security team that does a lot of work going across from San Diego to Mexico and back again. And I found that really interesting, But at the end, you see that the movie had a huge crowdfunding application, and I almost get the impression that they had the Sam Jones stuff because he let them into his world, but then all this crowdfunding allowed them to perhaps go get some of the people from Flash Gordon, reach out and try and get a lot of that team back together. And I found that interesting enough, but it was the Sam Jones part that I really enjoyed.
Did they get Brian Blessed?
They
How
did.
long did
and,
it take him to say the immortal words?
Oh, very quickly, very quickly. He mentions that the Queen herself asked him to say that, and apparently they loved watching Flash Gordon in the royal household. And at the Q&A, I wasn't there, but the Q&A, the director mentioned that she asked him about 3 questions, and he produced about an hour and a half worth of video footage from those 3 questions alone. So yeah, it sounds like it was quite an interesting experience for all involved. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. I can imagine this having a life on Netflix or Amazon Prime, something like that in the future, but it's definitely worth watching to support someone like Sam Jones and what he's doing and how open he is. It's an interesting movie.
I can corroborate that kind of story about Brian Blessed because I went to see a Q&A with him in Glasgow once. The guy who was hosting the Q&A asked one question, and then Brian Blessed proceeded to talk for an hour and a half. So much so that the film screening of Flash Gordon afterwards was delayed so long that I ended up having to miss it because I needed to get the bus back up to Aberdeen. I didn't mind though because he was just so entertaining, but it was simultaneously the best and worst Q&A I've ever been to. Brilliant because Brian Blessed was so entertaining, but a terrible host who was unable to control his guests. So.
Oh God!
So what did you catch up with?
Well, after that, I had a few interviews. I interviewed Matt Palmer, obviously now the Michael Palmer winning director of Caliber. We had a more in-depth interview than our smaller one as part of the cast and crew interviews, and he was still just riding the crest of a wave of the experience of Caliber winning all these plaudits in the press. Variety wrote a fantastic review about it, and he's just such a great and humble guy. He's one of our own, and the excitement he was sharing goes, as a person growing up, I dreamed of getting a really good review in Variety and having a film at the festival, and I think he's just in an incredible place, and I'm just so happy for him. So we had an interview, so that took up a good chunk of the day, but after that I went to see My Friend the Polish Girl before interviewing the cast and crew of that, and that's an interesting movie. It seems to be dividing critical opinion, but I think it's one of these movies that you watch it and you think, oh, this could just be sort of an art piece. It's about an American filming a documentary where she's following a Polish woman in London, and she's sort of pulling the strings behind the camera, trying to make her life perhaps more interesting, a bit more sexually active. And it's interesting, but I think what comes out of it afterwards, and I think it's from talking with the writers and directors, where it sticks with you. There's a lot of conversations you can have about this movie and what does it mean, what's people's interpretation, where are people meeting this, and what I interpret it as in some ways, the writers and directors didn't necessarily intend it as, but they maybe saw it in different ways, and other people have come out going, oh, I think it means this, and I think that's something quite exciting. That's part of a film festival experience, is disagreements, debate and discussion, and I think My Friend the Polish Girl certainly achieves that.
Excellent. Do you think it's one that will get a UK release or even a US release perhaps?
No, I wouldn't think so. Not with this type of movie. I think there's hopeful talk of distribution perhaps later in the year, but I think it'll find a home somewhere, and I think it'll be a movie that you'll have to seek out somewhere, but I think it'll be interesting to see what they do next, and if people that do see it, what kind of conversations they have and where they meet it.
What was next for you?
Well, it was back. You were back again, and me and you were back again together with a Unicorn Store.
Yes, Unicorn Store. The film where Captain Marvel takes on tasks set by Nick Fury to get a unicorn. It sounds like Deadpool's wet dream, but in fact, it's probably, for me, the sweetest movie of the year. Like an entire box full of Lucky Charms, but ditching the cereal and just having the marshmallows. What were your thoughts on that one?
It seems to be people either love it or feel somewhat indifferent to it. I thought the performances were wonderful. Samuel L. Jackson in particular is always good. Brie Larson was wonderful. I enjoyed the parents. The actor's name just completely vanished from my head.
The guy who'd vote for Obama a third time if he could.
Exactly. And what's her name? I always loved her in Addams Family
Cusack.
Values. Joan Cusack. I thought it was all so well cast, but it was just a bit too sickly sweet, especially at 9 in the morning for me. I'm surprised this movie hasn't picked up a distributor. I think it's been in a few festivals in America, and it seems to be not getting the love and attention that I would have expected a movie like this to get with the star power that it has. I'm very curious about that.
I heard a rumour that it basically potentially maybe screened at sort of Sundance and stuff around the same time as Lady Bird, and everyone sort of picked Lady Bird as their sort of female actor turned director sort of star vehicle to follow. I mean, it certainly is not for everyone. It is very sweet, very quirky. So there will be some people who absolutely adore it. There will be some people who hate it. For me, I really liked it. I liked the message. And for me, it's got one of the funniest moments I've seen this year where, I mean, Brie Larson, this is her first directorial debut, but I think she has a great ear for comedy and an eye for comedy. I mean, there's a scene which has been done several times before with sort of flicking through TV channels, and it basically sums up how bad her life is going at that point. But there's a moment where a smile fades on a human face, and it is held for the perfect amount of time that it was so funny for me. It was one of the funniest things I've seen in a long, long time, and I think she's got a future as a director. I really do. I think she'll be able to transfer it. But yeah, I mean, it's weird that it hasn't got a release yet, considering it's from the Oscar-winning actress Brie Larson. But I think maybe once Captain Marvel comes out, if it hasn't got a release by then it certainly will get a release with a new sort of DVD box cover being from Captain Marvel. Here's blah 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 blah. So.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely someone's going to take a chance on this eventually, and they'll definitely get rich reward for it.
So next, I went to the videotheque, which was a dark room in the middle of Filmhouse where you can watch films on a computer screen in order to catch up on the ones that you've missed at press screenings. And I decided to go for Humour Me, which was a comedy starring Jermaine Clement from Flight of Conchords as a playwright who loses his play, loses his wife, loses his child, loses his flat, and has to move in with his father, played by Elliot Gould, who lives in a retirement home in New Jersey. And a lot of the comedy comes from the fact that he's having to live with his dad in this place. And in order to pass the time, he takes on the job of directing some female members of the retirement home in staging a version of the Mikado's Three Little Girls. Now, I think you saw this one as well. What did you think of it?
Yes, I really enjoyed it. I was so happy to see Jermaine Clement get a lead role. I think this was one we predicted in our preview show of this be a movie to watch at the festival. Just so I think me and you were sold on Jermaine Clement and Elliot Gould, their father and son, sold. I really enjoyed this. This is the type of sense of humour that I quite like, that kind of droll, Jewish style humour that is sort of the blood of this movie, and how Elliot Gould kind of goes to a lot of those jokes. And I just thought it was really good, and I was so happy to see Jermaine Clement carry an entire movie. He's a nice romantic lead, he's a good comedy lead. It's not the most memorable, perhaps, movie in the world, but I think there's such a nice charm to it, and it's a movie that I think will find an audience, perhaps an older audience, but that's a good thing. I think sometimes that I think movies like this play well to that kind of crowd, and I think there's not enough movies made for some of that kind of older individuals, and I think I really enjoyed it personally.
Yeah,
what about yourself?
I think it is the kind of thing which I think certainly over here in the UK, if it was marketed more towards the older crowd, I think it'll do better. I think it's a very sweet, light-hearted, funny movie, but I don't think it's not going to set the box office alight over here. But I think if marketed to the right crowd, then it will do okay. But yeah, no, I'm all for more Jermaine Clement lead roles in comedies. Because he was doing something slightly different to sort of the Flight of the Conchords and the other things that he's done, so it was nice to see that side of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I had a kind of double bill myself at the videotheque. I went to see. I watched a short movie, Baby Gravy, which was a bit of I'd say a disappointment. I just found it nothing particularly special. It's about two lesbians that are waiting in a bar, waiting for their sperm donor to arrive, and yeah, it's okay. The couple has a small argument. It's all right. It wasn't anything kind of great, especially compared to like 12 Point Kill, which was a really good one. I just thought this one wasn't anything special. And then I went to see in the videotheque Almost Fashionable, a film about Travis, which won the audience award for the film festival, a prestigious award. And the reaction to that in the crowd was, huh. And I'm surprised too, because it's an hour-long movie. Well, a movie, it's a documentary. And when I spoke with Fran Healy, he was like, yeah, I'm very surprised that this is kind of in cinemas. I can imagine this being the sort of thing people watch around on TVs or maybe streaming. So they don't really have ambitions of this as a sort of film project. And that won the audience award, which was, either, dedicated fans or maybe people saw something I didn't quite. There's an aspect to this movie that I love, that the film follows Travis as they're performing in Mexico, and they ask one of their biggest critics to come with them on tour, see if a critic can change their mind by speaking with the fans, finding out why the fans enjoy Travis as a band, what's so special about them. And that aspect is really, really interesting. I like that a lot. And then the other part of it is sort of watching the band perform some of their songs on tour, which is fine enough. But that half of the movie I really enjoyed quite a lot. But I'm just very surprised it won the audience award. But congratulations to them. And Fran spoke so well, and he's such a great guy to talk with. So I'm really happy for him, but still surprised. And I'm sure they are too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was slightly surprised when I heard that it, I don't know how. Well, I mean, the audience award is basically every member of the audience is given a bit of paper, and you can vote for between 1 and 5 stars for the film. So I guess it's done on an aggregate basis, depending on how many people are there. They work out an aggregate score. So maybe it was very close between several different films. But I mean, when I'm just looking at the list now, and there's a couple of films which I thought would have maybe pipped it to the post. Such as Flammable Children was apparently one of the nominees. Anna and the Apocalypse I'd heard good things about. Ideal Home had played very well and was another one of the best of the fest. But there's one film on here which I unfortunately missed because I had to go back up to Aberdeen, but from what I gathered it was many people's favourite film of the festival that they saw, and that was Hearts Beat Loud.
Yeah.
Now, you saw this one. Do you want to talk about this one?
I loved Hearts Beat Loud. I went to see this movie, and it was, again, kept myself limited to what I knew going in. Knew it was about Nick Offerman making a band with his daughter, and it is just one of the most heartfelt, beautiful movies that you could see this year, let alone at the festival. We came out, and press and industry and some of my friends that were film critics and bloggers, they were wiping away the tears genuinely from watching this movie. The music is so beautiful, and it is just as simple as that. It's about a father and son that create a band, they put a song out on Spotify and it goes viral. And there's a lot of tropes you think that this movie could go into or fall down. It doesn't. It's genuinely a lovely movie with such strong performances, lovely music, and it's so good for the soul. It's it's got representation, it's got beautiful dialogue. It's just such a lovely movie, and I'm so happy to hear that it's got a distribution deal here for the UK. It's Brett Healy who was on the show with me. He said that it would be getting an international release, so you will get the chance to see this movie at some point later this year, and I cannot wait to hear your reaction.
Yeah, no, I'm gutted that I missed this one. I wasn't really aware of it basically until about 2 days before the day of the screening, and by that point I'd already booked my travel and couldn't change it. Otherwise I would have tried to stay and watch it, but it has been given a release. It's going to be released in the UK on the 3rd of August, which is the same day as Ant-Man and the Wasp. So if you're listening to this, please do go and see both films. Don't let this one slip by you at the cinema. It does sound like one of the feel-good films of the summer, so please do go and see it. One film that I think you can probably give a miss is the final film which I saw at the festival, which was Piercing. Now, Piercing is based on a Ryo Murakami novel, and it's about a young man who is married. He has a wife and a kid, a newborn baby, but he has murderous tendencies. And in order to avoid killing his own baby, he plots to go to a hotel, invite a prostitute to the hotel, and murder her. The first sort of 20 minutes of the film is basically him going through his plan step by step in order to create the perfect crime. What he doesn't count on, however, is finding out that the prostitute that is ordered to his hotel has some issues of her own, and it then becomes a sort of battle of wills as to who is the more messed up of them. I mean, this is the kind of film which, done right, could be really good and really interesting, but there was palpable discomfort during the screening I went to. It's incredibly gruesome at several different points, and there was a couple of walkouts. It's the first one of the festival that I've seen walkouts at, up to the point where someone actually walked out in disgust at a bit which I thought was probably going into the third act of the film, but it turned out when that person left, the film ended about a minute after that. It ends in a very odd place, but that was the film. It's well acted by Christopher Abbott, who was in Girls, and he was in a fantastic film which I saw at the previous year's Glasgow Film Festival called James White. Utterly astounding film that I hope people are able to see if it's on Netflix or streaming or on DVD. But for me, this was just horrendous, just like really, really bad. When you've got a film that uses very famous music from other films such as Deep Red, Tenebrae, a lot of Dario Argento movies, you have to be almost better than that film because your mind automatically goes, oh well, that was from that film, and you realise that you would prefer to be watching that film. So for me, this was one that I was looking forward to going in, but ultimately was just a massive disappointment.
Well, what a bum note to end your festival on.
Indeed, yeah. But I'd seen enough good films that on balance, I didn't feel that bad about it.
Sounds good. Well, I'll race through a good chunk of because I've still got a good amount to go. So after I'd seen all those movies, I watched a really interesting documentary called What Walaa Wants. It's a documentary which follows a young Palestinian girl as she wants to join the Palestinian army that works in the small city that she lives in. And it's the two kind of interesting movies sort of kind of clashing here. The big first part and the end really kind of follows a young girl's reaction to living in Palestine and her dislike of Israel. And she decides, as a young woman, she wants to join the Palestinian police force. So the middle movie is about her training and following her doing that. And it's really a fascinating insight into such an interesting culture. I mean, it's a brave movie to put on because if you're Israeli, Jewish, it's in a movie I don't know if people would be pleased to watch, but it is a really interesting to see a young woman's story going through this. Definitely recommend that if you get the chance. Winterlong was an interesting movie. It's sort of like Hunt for the Wilder People, but in Britain, but without the laughs. Young boy is abandoned by his mother on his estranged father's caravan. And a man that lived in seclusion, is a man of his own life, now has to put up with this son. And the son, if I put it, is an idiot, which makes it hard to root for this character. Some of the decisions he makes are so stupid, it irritates you. It's a good movie, but it's a bit cold. And I think the dislike of the young boy makes it a somewhat harder movie to get into. Then I saw The Butterfly Tree starring Melissa George. It was a movie I enjoyed, but kind of talking with her and about the movie and what they were kind of doing with it, I appreciate it a lot more. I did see this one in the videotheque, so I feel that such a bright, beautiful movie like this would have looked a lot better in the cinema. So that was a somewhat disappointment for me in that respect. So I would like to have the opportunity in the future to see this one in the cinema, but a worthwhile movie. The worst movie of the festival for me was Songbird, which was absolutely atrocious. It features Agent Myra Hill from Marvel movies. She gets her starring role as a band member that after a terrible gig splits from her band and then enrolls in university, and it is absolutely dreadful. Apparently the movie was improvised in 5 days, and it shows like the characters are so irritating. I mean, it's almost hard to watch a point, and I had 2 people walked out of my screening, and I genuinely thought it was so terrible. This movie, she is a good actress and she has some good moments in this movie, but her character is interesting. Jessica Hines, we were praising her a few weeks ago, we wanted to see her in more things. She's in this and she's so underserved by this poor movie. Not good at all, genuinely awful. I then saw The Parting Glass, a movie you loved. I finally got the chance to see that, and I thought that was really interesting, really good movie. I think the script is so strong, and having spoke with the actors about the real life connections for Dennis O'Hare, I thought this was such an interesting movie. Perhaps maybe it didn't work on the cinema as much for me, but I think as a stage play, as a piece of theatre and writing, it's fantastic. Locating Silver Lake, interesting movie, but perhaps maybe just doesn't gel as well. A young writer is dumped on graduation day, heads off to Los Angeles to find himself and become a writer, and then somehow he ends up in a bit of a cult and tries to escape that. But the cult stuff, which is interesting, comes a bit too late and is a bit underserved. I think the movie could have blended the 2 storylines a little bit better. The film that ended the festival, Swimming with Men, it's not my cup of tea, but I think it's a movie that my mum would enjoy, my granny would enjoy, and if films like that don't really get made for people like that. It's the most inoffensive movie in the world. It's got some lovely performances from the creme of British acting, British comedy acting. It's nice, it's good. It was a friendly way to end a film festival, but it wasn't a movie that was particularly for me. And the final thing that I've seen, and I only watched this one today, I watched this over lunch, was Laundromat. I met the illustrators behind this small short feature last night at the festival, and I said I would definitely check it out. And I thought it was a really nice little kind of movie made by some local talent. And it just follows the day in the life of a laundromat, and it's broken into 3 sections. And the illustrations on it are so lovely, and I thought it was such a nice little unique movie, and I'd be very curious to see what they'll do in the future. And I think the style and design of this movie was definitely appealing, and it was a nice little way to end my festival viewing to date. So there we go.
There we go, indeed. So yeah, no, a very, very busy festival for you. You managed to do the whole thing. So what I managed to do 23 films in 6 days. What was your final total?
37. Yeah, 37 was my final total in the end.
37 over 12 days. That's pretty good. And how many?
Well, it was probably more nearer. Yeah, well, I suppose for me it was 14 days because the festival obviously starts on the Wednesday, but press screenings start on the Monday. So I had an extra couple of days on top of that to spread some of them out and watch some of them on the videotheque online at home as well.
Excellent. So, yeah, as hopefully you guys are aware, Lee managed to interview several filmmakers and cast members and stuff like that. So, all of those are up on the Nerd Party website under the filibuster. You just have to search for that or search for them on social media. What were your particular highlights of the interview process? Who was the best interview?
Joe Dante was incredible. I don't know if you've had the chance to listen to that one, but he speaks with such wisdom and insight and such honesty as well. You know, he was talking about my friend Guillermo del Toro. I think when he makes his own movies, they're really good. When he does the studio ones, not so good. And you're like, wow, this guy's just being honest. He doesn't know me. It's one of these ones to be so honest with a film with an interviewer was lovely, and he meant everything in such a respectful way. And just listening to him talk about the studio process and how that all works in original movies and how things have changed since the 80s in terms of summer releases was just really interesting. He was just such a great guy to spend 15-20 minutes with, and he couldn't have been more friendly and helpful. And I genuinely thought, wow, it's true what they say, you know, you should meet your heroes when you get the chance.
Excellent. So I think that brings us to, so now that the festival's over, are you able to give a definitive sort of top 5?
Yeah, I could. Well, I've gone with a top 6. Let me just.
Is that because I did a top 6 yesterday?
Yeah. I was doing a top 5, and then when I saw that you were doing 6, I was like, well, if it's good enough for Dallas.
Well, yeah, I had to do 6 because I basically had 5 and then remembered one film and thought, it's too good not to mention, so I'm going to go with 6. And I'm just looking at them now going, am I... Yes, no, I think I'm secure in my choices, I think.
Yeah,
I'm not going to move anything around, so yeah. Do you want to kick off with your 6?
Yeah, Dead in a Week or Your Money Back.
Okay. My number 6 was Flammable Children, aka also Swinging Safari, depending on where it's released.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5?
Obey.
Me, number 5 was The Great Buddha, which I was lucky enough to do a Q&A for. It's probably one that I wouldn't have seen if I hadn't done the Q&A, but I'm so glad that I did. It was such a strange, sort of Taiwanese, sort of Rear Window-esque film, and I just really dug it, and I hope people manage to see it at some point somewhere. Your number 4?
Flammable Children, aka Swinging Safari.
Excellent. My number 4 was Supermodo film. Such a lovely, sweet film about the girl who's got a terminal illness, but the local village rally around her to create a superhero and superhero movie. And at number 3...
Hearts Beat Loud.
I'm sure that would have been on my list if I had seen it. Unfortunately, I did not. So at my 3, it is The Parting Glass.
Interesting.
Yeah. Number 2...
C'est la vie.
Another one that I've missed, but I've heard fantastic things for. I believe it is coming up to Aberdeen, the local independent cinema, in the next couple of months, so I'll definitely have to catch it then.
Keep an eye out. It's at the Film House on Bastille Day for a preview here, so you maybe get a preview then and the Belmont on that day too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My number 2 was The Incredibles 2, which I think is one of the best superhero sequels ever made. And I have a feeling that our number 1 film is probably going to be the same thing. So what did you have?
Yep, Caliber.
Yep, it's Caliber for me as well. I think when we both saw this, we sort of said there's no other film is going to win the Best British Film at the Edinburgh International Film Festival. Sort of fate was written in the stars that, you know, Matt Palmer, who's, you know, a hometown boy turned good. And the fact it's... I've already seen a few people talking about it on Netflix. I recommended it to a friend and he got back to me today saying it was absolutely fantastic. He watched it last night and was chilled to the bone, but had the song going around in his head from the big sort of party scene in the pub and stuff like that. So I think hopefully it's doing really well on Netflix and finds a huge audience, and we can't wait to see what Matt Palmer does next, I think.
Absolutely. It's definitely been it definitely was the highlight of the festival, and you know, I think it was just yeah, as soon as I saw it I was like, that's going to be the best. It'll be hard to top that, and a few movies came close, but Caliber won out.
Excellent. So that brings our festival to a close, and I guess it will be back to regular programming next week with us moaning about a lack of great films in the cinema because the World Cup's on, etc. and stuff like that. Although I have managed to catch a couple of things, but we can leave that till the next time around. So Lee, if people are wanting to find out a bit more about your interviews and find out who you talk to during the festival, and where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, they can find me. I am on Twitter at Lee_Nostromo. You can find obviously the Nerd Party at Join Nerd Party on Twitter, at the Nerd Party on Instagram, and just search for /the Nerd Party on Facebook, and you'll find all our different interviews, all our coverage, and everything there. So yeah, hopefully people have enjoyed it, and then I can see the numbers, and yeah, people seem to have really connected with quite a few of the episodes. So I'm glad that people have got something out of it.
Well, I mean, I just want to add now, I mean, that congratulations on what you've managed to achieve over the last sort of 12 days. I mean, you look at what some of the major sort of outlets are doing, and I think you've managed to cover a huge amount of films and a huge amount of talent in that time. And I mean, congrats to you for managing to fit it all in. And hopefully you can take a well-earned break now. Take a couple of days off from the cinema, catch up, and then we can get back into it again next week again.
Absolutely. That Love Island won't watch itself.
Well, that's a conversation for next week's episode, I think. So, yeah, I'm Dallas King, and you can catch me on Twitter at @champcelluloid. And if you want to read any of my reviews from the festival, they're at championshipcelluloid.blogspot.com. But for now, take it easy, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.